Alrighty, everybody, welcome in. Let's play some chess. I'm gonna start out here with the Reti opening, see if we can get some action from the white side of the board. This is our flexible opening that gives us a lot of options. I have been playing not as much chess lately. I was down and out with a slight sinus infection here, and it's kept me from getting in a bunch of games, but that's okay. We'll play whatever we can. Now, this does nothing to stop us from executing our plan, so we're just going to go ahead with it. We could have gone, yeah, we still can go with our C4, or that's not what I want, with our C4 ready. But we're going to play this in more of a King's Indian style. I'm finding that I like the King's Indian attack from white as well, as much as I like the King's Indian from the black side of the board. But from the white side of the board, I'm finding that this is something I enjoy as well. C4 is always a possibility. There's nothing that's saying I can't play C4, because notice here, capture, capture, capture. Then we just move the knight. Now for black, an early game queen trade is not the end of the world. The other thing we could do is simply just rotate the knight now. Oh man, I really would like to get that fork. That's a long ways away. Do we have time to fianchetto? You know, let's just go ahead and castle. Let's stick to the plan. Stick to what we know best. Let's go ahead and castle. I'm assuming my opponent is going to castle queenside at this point in time, which means I'm going to start my attack. Because I've got pressure here. Push, take, no, just no way to get it. Okay, yeah, my opponent is starting his attack here. Excuse me. So the idea here is what we're going to do is make sure this bishop doesn't come to F2, or completely backwards on the board, to E7. Yep. So we're going to induce a weakness, and now we can retreat to a square that we want to be at this whole time. Let's go ahead and get all the way back. Now this can't come, so if this pawn ever pushes, I've got access to it here. Now my opponent is most likely looking for trade off the light square bishop, so let's go ahead and try to remember if there's a way that I could add some defense here. Not right off the bat, but let's go ahead and clear the back. Right, clear the space behind our fianchetto. So as this comes down, we can retreat if we need to. Trying to see if there's any kind of attack I can get going. Takes. Now we're threatening here. It's not much though. That would give us access to... No, it wouldn't. I feel like there is definitely something in this position that I want to exploit. Just not sure what it could be. Do I want this open? I kind of do. This pawn is pinned. Now my opponent just has to castle, and that pawn is no longer a threat. I should have done it backwards. I messed up. I should have gone here first. Check first, pick up, and then here. That move order is wrong. Yeah, that move order is wrong. Okay, so now check. No, that's not even check. Yeah, I did the move order wrong here. I still think I want to go for it. I'm assuming my opponent will take here. But then I can always just drop back this way. So we get a rook lift in. And then I think we're going to get out here as well. Did my opponent just make a mistake? Yep, they did. Oh well. We've all been there, right? So I want to go back and I want to analyze this because this was a weird game. So let's just open in the book explorer here to look at openings. Very, I don't want to say a rare move, but it's down on the list of responses. Yeah, it looks like the answer is basically just some kind of four knights opening. Yeah, and D3 is the most common response there. D4 is a possibility. 1-2 attackers and 1-2 defenders. Wow, my arrows suck. So D4 is a possibility. But yeah, I pushed my King's Pawn Breaker, which is the standard in the King's Indian. And yeah, Bishop G2, just go ahead and develop. Let's turn this off because we're kind of at the end of book knowledge. Very even game this early on. And so you notice that I always end up seeming to be playing from slightly behind because by going for this, right, I'm making an extra pawn move and I'm fianchettoing. And so I'm not really doing a whole lot in the opening. It doesn't seem like it. And notice my queen side is completely undeveloped, whereas my opponent is controlling the center. So sometimes the engine doesn't give enough weight to some of these super hyper-modern opens, which hyper-modern meaning anything from 1920 and forward. Modern chess is basically the last 500 years, so... This early outside H-pawn is, and engines usually love this move. When TEC, the engine championship, no, the Chess Engine Championship. I forget what it's called. But a lot of times what they'll do is they will have these ongoing tournaments where they pit the top chess engines in the world against each other. So Stockfish, Alpha Zero, they'll basically give them 100 games each, right? They'll play 100 games against each other and try to determine, which engines are more efficient. And we also can study how those lines develop, how they play those positions. A lot of times you'll see these outside pawns, specifically the H pawn, you'll see them really early in engine lines. And you saw that this did become a problem. It makes you think, it really makes you think on what to do. And so the engine really loves it. And wow, the engine hated that move. But the entire purpose was I wanted to make sure that if this pawn was pushed, I could grab it with my knight, if need be, because that's a theme of the King's Indian, right? Rotate the knight out of the way, or rotate the knight out of the way, so that you can get ready with your E and F pawn pushes to break open the center. Now in this case, I just wanted to be available, but notice my opponent could simply block with their bishop and thus really strengthen control over that H4 square, and I didn't want to do that. So this was a calculated move, knowing that my opponent couldn't stick their bishop here, and if they could, then I could at least clear it out so that the only control comes from the rook and the queen, and that means my knight can basically hold off those two big hitters. So this induces that weakness. So now if this bishop comes here, it blocks that diagonal. So that was a calculated move. The engine doesn't like it, but oh well. But the engine does say bust open the center now. Yeah, I waited too long to bust open the center, and I really gave black an advantage here. My opponent played really well. Yeah, I guess the idea of starting the queenside attack, because your opponent's about to castle queenside, so I guess starting the queenside attack probably a little better in this position. But when I play, I get so tunnel vision on what's happening at that moment that it's hard for me to step back in the middle of a game and look at what's going on. Now, we had plenty of time in this game. I could have easily taken an entire minute to walk away, come back, refresh myself, and still been had plenty of time on the clock. Yeah, my opponent closing it down was a good idea. The engine really wants me to push this basically to induce either a trade or close the position down. But notice this would not have worked if the queen and the bishop were aligned on that H4 square. That would not have worked because my opponent would have happily traded away that bishop to open up in front of my king and then have the queen already out here with a queen. Now this pawn would be in the way, so it wouldn't really be a battery, but to have the queen out here basically pick up a free pawn and weaken my king side. Wow, what a move. That changed the entire game. Surprised. I'm really surprised that that's what changed the state of this game. I think maybe it's just because my opponent has waited too long to castle. Yeah, the engine says castling, developing. I don't quite understand that retreating move there, but castling and developing makes sense. But wow, what an absolute disaster for my opponent here. Yep, and what did I say? I called it. What did I say? As soon as I made this move, I realized that I wanted to trade away get that knight. I just missed it. Look at that. Yep, I just missed it. Gave my opponent that one move. All it takes is one move. You do things one move too early or one move too late, game over. And in this case, one move too late. I recognized it, but I wish I was better at seeing these over the board. I wish I was better at mentally recognizing and following through that this is what I want, because capture, and then here, and then castle, I can immediately bring the rook up, and there's no threat of the knight coming around. And because this comes with check, my opponent has to respond to it immediately. And now it's actually too late, and my opponent should have taken here, by taking the way they did, it absolutely allowed me to get my rook involved. That's the swing right there. It's incredible. And then, unfortunately, my opponent just... Whoops. Just made a mistake. See, I was anticipating maybe... Yeah, see, if the queen came back to put pressure here, to relax here... Oh, wow, the engine wants me to bring the queen all the way out? Oh, I guess you're attacking 2 pawns. Okay. That makes sense, actually, now that I'm looking at it. See, I was thinking bring the queen out here to the open file, but you're not really threatening anything. You'd have to get the rook over, and this pawn is in the way. But this move attacks 2 pawns at the same time. Now, I would have to be careful. Yeah, this infiltration here, is that something to be worried about? Yes, because our rook is not defending the back row. Now, it's not like we have back rank issues. Technically, we have that covered right now, but... The engine says give up the rook because you're threatening checkmate. You have to give the rook back. Wow, that's interesting. Lots of material hanging. Checkmate because back row. Huh. So yeah, giving up the rook here is the correct move in order to get this line. Wow, I would never have seen that in a million years. White's attack is just much stronger here. The queen infiltrating. Is it still the same thing? Not quite. Because the queen can get back in time. This rook comes up to defend. Okay. And now what? Where's the follow-up? I see moving the knight into the game, but there's really no nail in the coffin, is there? White's down in exchange, but has the attack. This is the part of the game that I'm not good at, is this transition here. From the middle game where you've developed an advantage, seeing how it transitions to that win. Converting that advantage into the win. I'm just not good at it. There's so much that I'm not seeing here. And the engine, the problem with studying with an engine at this point is it's going to show the best possible continuations, but what it doesn't show is what happens if the opponent does something silly like this. What's the final threat? Yeah, something like this. Check again. The king really has to start walking. Oh, well, you've got a free queen here, but even that is not the best move. Well, right, because you have to get your queen out of the way first. If you had, now if you don't have access to any of this. Yeah, if you had access here, you could pick up a rook. Yeah, I just don't see what the, it's hard for me to see. So sometimes I turn this little button on here, the threat, and to show what the threat is. The threat of this position, let me back up one. Oh, there's no... Yeah, see, it doesn't show what I want to see because the threat in this position is me. Like, what am I threatening? I can't tell. And the engine actually says not much. So it's hard to see these, and I'm just not advanced enough to understand some of these concepts. But either way, let's go back to the beginning. The Reti opening, well, not really, in fact, this wasn't really a Reti. This was more of a King's Indian. In fact, let's turn on. Does it say King's Indian? No, it never did. This is more of a King's Indian attack. My opponent with the early H-pawn turned out not to be an issue at all. I know the engine doesn't like this move, but I felt like it was pretty strong. It was a calculated effort to make sure my opponent blocked the way I wanted him to block, or I got rid of their dark square bishop so that this square was free for me, so that I always had control over it. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to make sure I had control over that square. And then at this point in time, as soon as my opponent moved the queen up, we knew they were castling queen side. I really could have started the advancement on the queen side. You know, start bringing my... Yeah, I could have really started the attack like this. Takes. Yeah, and see, now there's a double attack here. Well, there's double defense, so I'm safe for the time being. Like I said, sometimes it's just hard to see. Yeah, in this case, I'm in a little bit of a trouble, because I'm going to lose that. I can't hide the bishop. Oh, and here's this. And now I have to be really careful, because if I move the knight... Infiltration. All right, guys. Well, this was a fun one. Real short, real easy. Hope you guys liked it. I need to slow down. I need to play slower. I've got plenty of time. I need to really think through some of these positions, because, I mean, at this point in the game, you know, 10 moves in, I need to not be... I need to really make sure that I'm making big decisions, because this is where the game can really change one way or the other. And I think this is some of the things I'm missing. I'm rushing through some of these positions, and I don't need to. I need to really get better at seeing the depth of it. For instance, my opponent at this point in time has used less than a minute on their clock. Okay, a full minute and 10 seconds on their clock. And you could see the evaluation just completely changed. And then right here, I wish I had been able to visualize the next step. Okay, I'm going to move this here, right? I'm going to move this here, and I'm going to threaten here. Well, I can't threaten here because this knight is in the way. Well, if I go here and then my opponent castles, then it's not enough time, so I need to grab first. I need to make those calculations and think those thoughts through before I commit to a move. And I'm getting better at it, but I'm just not there yet. And my rating reflects that. I'm stuck in this 1600 range. So, oh well. But hey, thanks for sticking with me. I appreciate you guys very much, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.